Search for the Heaviest, the series where we're exploring plugins, hardware and more, and we're kicking off the series with a brand new drum kit from Red Pack Drums, the Bronze Kit. This is a meticulously sampled custom drum set made entirely out of bronze, made by VK Drums. It costs around $30,000 and weighs more than 150 kilos, even though this is my gym's warm-up set. Easy peasy. For metal drums, it's heavy as fuck. So let's see if it's really as heavy as it claims. So Red Pack Drums claim that this drum set is made for metal production, and well, you can use it at your own risk. I like these bold claims. It has 10 velocity layers, round robins, 15 gigabytes of instruments. That's quite a lot of captures for a drum set. Sounds heavy, aggressive, alive. Lots of really big claims, which many companies really like to do, and many metal engineers know how complicated it is to mix drums in a way that really sits in the mix and punch through everything else. Let's see if it's really standing up to the standard. When we're loading the kit for the first time, this is what you see. And upon first loading, I have to say this is a really beautiful drum kit, and I would love to see this one live. Not pick it up though. So we got all the regular stuff like the kick, snare, the toms, and all the cymbals. So that's a China, different crashes, ride. It sounds like trash cymbals here. And you also have something that they call chimes. If we go into the MIDI and play here, you see you have different types of sounds. And you also have the options to change between the different parts of the drums. There were several recordings that were made, so have the crash here, different sounds, and with the snare, looks like you have 3 types of snares and several types of tunings, which is nice. So let's see this one, and then this. You have different heights to match it to your genre, and from here you can also access the mixer, which you can also access by clicking on the VK here on the top. So this is the main, and here or here is the mixer. It's also really nice to have the MIDI arranged in a logical sense, where all the drum pieces are grouped together. So you have all the different snares, variations right here, and the hi-hat here. And unlike Superior Drummer, for example, where you have the hi-hat in many different locations on the keyboard, it's really nice and easy to have everything in one place. And I guess it's mostly made for designing it in production than in eDrums, but there is also the option to change the MIDI, and we're getting there now. This is a pretty standard MIDI map, and you have a fuck ton of hi-hat samples. We can load different maps from here. You have the regular ones like the Superior Drummer, Easy Drummer, Get Good Drums, the Invasion also. I am missing Addictive Drums and the Steven Slate drums, but I guess you can also import them. And I guess you can download different drum maps, and it's pretty easy to find, so it's pretty easy to get them here. And you also have the option to save the MIDI map if you do any types of changes. If you want to add a new MIDI key, you can simply click on the sample, hit the key on the MIDI keyboard, and then you can add another key if you want 2 keys to control the same sample. For example, if you're using pads or eDrums. So I'm gonna press the second, and you can see that it's added here, but you can always select and change what you need based on your preferences. There's a pretty nice feature here called Auto Rimshot, and this lets you add a rimshot sample whenever the velocity is higher than the number right here. So this is how it sounds when I'm lowering it down. You can hear the rimshot, and I'll increase the velocity, and unless I'm pressing it all the way down, you can't really hear the rimshot with it, which is a pretty nice feature. But you can control them separately if you want a rimshot in any velocity or the center hit right here. I'll keep this to around 110. Then under the hi-hat you have the inverse CC and the learn CC. I guess this is something that's meant more for eDrums. When you're moving the pedal and opening and closing it, you can press on those features here to learn how the hi-hat is reacting with this system. Now let's move on to the grooves. And we have a pack here. We have one by Ralf Schumacher, a very known and very talented drummer. And we also have different songs variations in different tempos. The tempos here are going to change if you're using the Contact standalone, but if you're using your DAW, it's going to match the settings of your DAW. So let's pick grooves, for example, and see one of the songs. You can double click and press on play. Simply double click to load new songs. And if you like something and you want to drag it into your project, you can do it directly from here, not from here. So if I'm dragging it, nothing happened, but from here, I can drag it and load it onto Cubase. When the drums are playing, you can see a slider here in the bottom, and this is basically controlling the velocity curve. So if I'm sliding it all the way to the right, you hear that it's 100% robotic and in your face all the time. And if I'm sliding it to the left, it's going to be a lot more subtle, and every small velocity change is going to be significantly more noticeable. So I'm going to keep it somewhere in the middle, like it was on default. Yeah, this is a pretty basic groove page, and you can go around and see all the different types of grooves and feels to see if you can find something that gives you new inspirations. Now let's head to the mixer, pressing on the logo up here on the top. Okay, so we have the DCA. This basically allows it to control the volume for each drum piece altogether. So if the kick is right here, I'm lowering it down, it's going to lower all the mics that are connected to the kick. And you have several different microphones for each drum piece, and this basically allows you to mute all of them altogether. You can control the volume for all the shells and also for all the cymbals by clicking right here and switch between what you need. While the DCA controls all the different microphones, you have the closed microphones, the overhead, and the rooms. And additionally, you also have here on the side the option to control all the cymbals, overhead, room, and the master. I'm guessing this is more useful for E-drums when you're sending the sound to the front of house and they need you to change the volume on specific groups. Let's dive in and look at the closed mics. Starting with the kick, we have just a kick. Let's solo that. I'm guessing they use a condenser to capture more of the body. Then you have the sub. I assume they place the microphone inside the kick that captures all the sub frequencies. And I guess they also did some extra processing to make it more separated from the other samples. And then finally you have the trigger, which is usually being used in metal mixing to highlight the top frequencies to give the kick just a bit of a punch. In the snare we also have several microphones that captured it. We have the snare top, we have the snare bottom, we have the snare trigger, which is muted by default, but I guess you can turn it on and see how it sounds like. It's a completely different snare, not something electronic. And I guess this is something you can design as a whole to give it a bit more punch. And finally you have the sub snare. Never seen that in a plugin before, but from what I can hear, it's capturing the lower frequencies of the snare, which can give you a bit more play in all the frequency spectrum. Then we have all the toms, and a different view for the cymbals. And now for something I really like that they did here is that you have the option to control each drum's EQ and effects. So if we go to the kick, for example, you have on each track an EQ and effects, and if you press on it, you can see that it's focusing only on this kick's EQ, and this is a 4-band EQ. It's currently turned off, and if we turn it on and solo this kick, we can play with the gain of the low mid, with the Q, and also control which frequency is being activated. It's a pretty aggressive one from what I can see. So go easy on that. We also have a high pass filter and a resonance to control how it's working. I guess this is something you can use more as effects or with cymbals, but again, this is a very aggressive EQ, so use it lightly. Then we have a low, you can have a shelf or a notch, and the same with the high, and of course select the frequencies on each of them and the high pass filter right here. Then right next to that we have the effects, and we have sound effects that are most common with drum mixing. You get a transient designer, tape saturation, reverb with 2 controls. We have a plate and room, and this is the send amount. And what you're probably going to use the most if you want to push the drum forward is the parallel compression. You have the spark and the smack. Both of them are controlling the dynamics and giving the drums a much bigger oomph. Let's play with it a bit to see how we can make it a bit better. We can increase the smack and reduce the sustain to get just a little bit less tail. Add some saturation, a bit more warmth. And reverb doesn't go well with kicks, but we can have just a little bit to have a room here. Now we focus just on one microphone of the kick, and if we hear all the microphones that recorded the kick, you can see that it sounds completely different from what it started. So this is before, and this is after. Now you can basically go to each microphone here and change all the different parameters and the settings to make the sound as heavy or as light as you want. And don't forget that you can also do the same for the overheads and the rooms to design the space around the drums and make them sound even bigger, smaller, or whatever you decide. Then finally, on the side of the mixer we have the spread, the gate, and the pitch. And when you select the spread, any piece that was recorded with a stereo microphone can have artificial stereo widener to make the samples sound wider. So for example, if we go to the close, we can see that only the bottom snare was recorded with 2 microphones, and if we play, let's solo that so we can hear. You can hear that it's sounding a bit wider. And of course, all the overheads and the rooms were recorded with 2 microphones on each side of the room. Let's try it with a snare. Remove the solo. And you can really hear how it affects the sounds overall. It can cause some phase issues because that's the nature of stereo widener, but you also have a phase shifter here. And if you notice that it does give you some phasing issues, you can always check or uncheck and see how it's affecting the sound overall. Even though sometimes phasing can be a good strategy to make the sound a bit more dirty, which is something we want, of course, in metal production. Next, we can go to the gate, and you have 3 sliders on each track, so I guess they stand for attack, hold, and release. And I like to use gates especially on floor toms or annoying snares with a not so pleasant sustain. And this is very handy to have right here inside of the plugin. Let's test the toms, for example. You can hear the shift of the bass frequencies after you finish the play, and it can sometimes mess up your mixes. So let's decrease the hold and the release just a bit more. And this sounds like something we can work with. There's a small bug in the gate that when you're touching the attack and going then into the effects or the EQ, then it's locking all the parameters in place and preventing you from changing them, which is kind of weird. I'm pretty sure it's an easy fix, and I informed the guys at Red Pack Drums, but if you have this bug, you can simply duplicate the track and continue from there like nothing happened. And you also have a digital pitch shifter if you want to tune your drums lower or higher. Go easy on that because digital pitch shifting, especially on drums, sounds kind of weird and artificial when you're pushing it too much. Let's do tom 1. You can make it higher or lower. Set it somewhere around 3. And don't forget to do the same for the tom 1 in the overhead and in the rooms. Unless you want some kind of dissonance, though it can be nice to have a global setting for individual drum pieces. Maybe this is something they'll also include in an update. We can control the volume for each individual sample. So for example, if I want a bit less trigger or a bit less top, more trigger, it's easy to do. And we can also pan them left and right however we want. And finally, if you want to send the drum pieces to different outputs, you can do it manually one by one by going down and selecting the output, or use the template they created by clicking here and send them all to master by default. Have a standard 5 mix output, 15 outputs, or 23. You can check this table to see all the different routings they created in the template. I gotta say, I am pretty impressed with these drums and what they can do, and I have so many drum plugins, from Superior Drummer to different selections as you can see here. And until now I worked with many different drum libraries together to find the sound that I really connect to, but apparently the heavier the drum set, the heavier it is, and that's kind of cool. Let's start with the pros, and remember, this is not a paid sponsorship. I tested this out of my own will and I really like what I heard. This is one of the best sounding drum samples out there, and it's treated in a specific way for metal productions. Not many plugins do it, and they're either under-deliver or don't give you enough options to tone it to the way you need. Second pro is that the inner effects and EQ are a godsend and work very, very well. So you'll most likely only need to work with this plugin and barely mess with external outputs. And this is gonna save you a lot of space and CPU in your mixing. And finally, the UI is extremely easy to work with and doesn't have too many options or very hard to find controls. And I really think this is going to be my go-to plugin for most metal productions. That being said, there are some cons that I'm pretty sure that can be easily fixed. And the first one is the gate bug. I'm not sure if this is only happening to me, but if you get to test it, share what happened to you in the comments. There are some UI visuals for the first-time users that can be a bit more helpful, like the gate parameters, output routing displayed at all time, and maybe a global solo and mute control. And of course, a group pitch and gate options for all the similar drum pieces. And it also would be nice to see a contact drum library with a bit more organized system for the grooves. Maybe genre instead of just songs and groove, renaming option, the option to import new stuff, favorites. And this is something I think many contact libraries are neglecting, which is kind of shame because this can be a really good starting point for many projects. I will contact the guys at Redpack Drums and also include my own MIDI and presets, so hopefully by the time you see this video you'll have some examples to use. I will also include an affiliate link in the description, so if you liked what you heard and you want to buy the drums, go and use the link below. It will help the channel and you'll also get some really incredible drums. If you like this video, a like and subscribe would help the channel tremendously, and I will keep making more plugins and hardware reviews to help all the metalheads among you to get the best, most brutal tone you can. So until the next time, stay heavy.